All right, hey guys, so this video is over complex fractions. A complex fraction is a fraction in which the numerator and denominator both contain fractions. To simplify a complex fraction means to rewrite as a single fraction with no fractions in the numerator or denominator. So the first thing you want to do is create a single fraction in the numerator and denominator. So you set up as a division problem, then multiply by the reciprocal, simplify, factor first if possible. Okay, so this is already in division format. So remember, you can't divide fractions, so instead you multiply by the reciprocal. So what we're doing here is you take the numerator, okay, and then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator here. So we're multiplying times 4 over a squared. Then you just want to multiply straight across. So a times 4 is 4a. 2 times a squared is 2a squared. And then you want to simplify. 4 over 2 simplifies to 2. A over a squared is a to the negative first power, so it's an a in the denominator. Okay, number 2, so we have 6 over xy times the reciprocal of the denominator, so 8x cubed over 3y. Multiply straight across. 6 times 8x cubed is 48x cubed. Xy times 3y is 3xy squared. And then simplify from there. 48 over 3 simplifies to 16. X cubed divided by x is x squared. And then that y squared would just pull over. On this one, so we have 18p over 8p minus 2 times the reciprocal 4p minus 1 over 4p squared. Now, because we have binomials here, to multiply this, we first we need to simplify by factoring. So our denominator here, we can factor a 2 out. So that turns into 2. And then 8p divided by 2 is 4p. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Okay, in our numerator, that's not going to simplify because you can't take anything out. So now we want to cancel what we can. So our 4p's minus 1's cancel. So that leaves us with 18p over that 2 and 4p squared. We can go ahead and combine together. That turns to an 8p squared. Now we just want to simplify. So 18 over 8, they both divide by 2, so that turns into 9 over 4. And p over p squared is p to the negative first power, so that p goes in the denominator. Okay, on number 4, so we have k minus 1 over k times k squared over k squared minus 1. Okay, this we cannot simplify, but our denominator right here, we can do the difference of squares, so that turns to k plus 1, k minus 1. Okay, so our k minus 1's end up canceling each other out, and so that leaves us with a k squared over k, and then a k plus 1. Okay, so our k squareds and k right there, that can simplify down because that just turns into a k in the numerator, and then we can just carry over k plus 1, and that is our final answer. This one right here, so we have 7c plus 35 over c times reciprocal, so c squared over c plus 5. We can do the greatest common factor of this. We can take a 7 out of everything, so that turns to a 7 and then c plus 5. Our c plus 5's cancel, so we are left with 7c squared over c. And then to simplify that, that just turns to a 7c. Okay, on this one we have b plus 2 is over b squared plus 6b plus 8, and then times the reciprocal, so b squared minus b minus 20 over 1. Okay, so we want to factor this. So what multiplies to give you 8 and adds to give you 6 is 4 and 2. I'm just going to rewrite this whole thing here. So we have b plus 2 over b plus 4, b plus 2. Okay, and then factoring this, what multiplies to give you a negative 20 and adds to give you a negative 1 is negative 5 and 4. So b minus 5, b plus 4, whole thing is over 1. Okay, so our b plus 2's cancel, our b plus 4's cancel. So that just leaves us with b minus 5 over 1, which is just b minus 5. Okay, on number 7, in the denominator, that's not a fraction, so that just means it's going to be over 1. So this is actually going to be 15 minus 15r over 15r squared times 1 over 12r minus 12. Okay, so in the numerator right here, we can take a 15 out of both of those. So that leaves us with 1 minus r. We're over 15r squared. Over here, in our denominator, we can take a 12 out, and that leaves us with r minus 1. Okay, so our r minus, I'm sorry, this is 1 minus r, and that's r minus 1, so that actually cancels down to a negative 1. Okay, so that actually, if we want to multiply across and then simplify, so that's a negative 1 times 15 is negative 15. And this right here is 15r squared times 12. Well, 15, or actually, let me take that back. The 15s can actually just cancel each other out. You can actually do it like that, and that'll be easier. And so then that just leaves us with, in the numerator, we have a negative 1, and in our denominator, we have a 12r squared. And that simplifies down the multiplication part on that. And so then that's our final answer. Okay, on this one, so we have 2m squared minus 2m minus 40 over 3m plus 12, and we are multiplying times the reciprocal, so 9m squared plus 36m over m cubed minus 5m squared. Okay, so in our numerator on this one, we need to first take a 2 out of everything. So then that leaves us with m squared minus m minus 20. In our denominator here, well, actually, let's go ahead and simplify that down. Again, let's go ahead and factor. So it multiplies to give you a negative 20 and adds to give you a negative 1 is negative 5 and 4. So that actually turns into a 2, and then m minus 5, m plus 4. Out of our denominator right here, we can take a 3 out, and that turns into m plus 4. Over here, out of our numerator, we can take a 9m out of both of those. And that leaves us with m plus 4 as well. And out of our denominator, we can take an m squared out. And that leaves us with an m minus 5. Okay, so m minus 5's cancel, m plus 4 cancels. We can only cancel it one time because there's only 1 down here, so that m plus 4 right there is going to have to stay. So we are left with 9 over 3 cancels down to a 3. And then m over m squared cancels down to where this is just an m down here. So then we have 2 times 3 is 6. We still have an m plus 4, and we just have an m in our denominator, and that is our final answer. Okay, and let's flip over to the back side. Okay, this one in our numerator, we actually have two different fractions here. So we need to first combine that together into one. So to do that, we have to do like what we did on the last note sheet, the adding and subtracting. We need to have common denominators here. So this side we need to multiply times x, and this side we need to multiply times 3. So that turns into an x squared minus 9, and this is over 3x. Okay, then we can multiply times the reciprocal of this, so times x over x minus 3. Okay, so in our numerator right here, that we can do the difference of squares, so that turns into x plus 3, x minus 3. Okay, our x minus 3's are going to cancel each other out. The x's are going to cancel each other out. So we are left with an x plus 3 over 3 as our final answer. Okay, on this one, same thing in our denominator. First, we need to combine that together. So this side we are going to multiply times a q, and this side times a p. So we have 1 over pq times, well, this right here, our numerator is going to be pq because we're multiplying times the reciprocal, and our denominator, well, 1 times q is q, and then it's minus 1 times p is p. Okay, our pq's cancel, and so that leaves us with 1 over q minus p as our answer. On this one, first thing we want to do is we need to break this down. So we're going to take a 4 out of both of those, and so then that turns into n minus 4. So that means to get common denominators here, we just have to multiply this side times a 4. So that turns into 20. 5 times 4 is 20, so 20 minus 20 is, hold on. Yeah, 20 minus 20 is 0. Oh, I'm sorry. I did it on the wrong side. That's why. Sorry, let's say. I was like, that doesn't make sense. Okay, this side we have to multiply times a 4. That's why. Okay, so 4 times 20 is 80. So we have, let me just combine that together right there. So we have 80 minus 5 over 4 times n minus 4, which turns that into 75 over 4. There we go. So this is what we're dividing by. So we have, if we rewrite that, that's 5/4 times this reciprocal, which is 4n minus 4 over 75. Okay, so then our 4's are going to cancel each other out. 5 over 75, that is going to simplify down to 1 over 15. So we have n minus 4 over 15 is going to be our final answer. Okay, on number 12, this is 1 over 1, which is the same thing. If we're trying to get it to where it has a denominator of w plus 2, then that really is 1 is just w plus 2 over w plus 2. Okay, so then if we are combining that together, that's w minus w ends up canceling each other out. And so we're really just left with 2. So that turns into 2 over w plus 2. Okay, this part right here. So we have w over w plus 2 times the reciprocal of this, which is w plus 2 over 2. So our w plus 2's cancel, so it just leaves us with a w over 2. Okay, on this one, to combine our numerator together, this side we need to multiply times a b squared, and this side times an a squared. Down here, this side we need to multiply times an a, and this side times a b. Okay, so then that turns into, we have b squared minus a squared, which is over a squared b squared. And then this is times the reciprocal of this, okay, where our reciprocal is going to be a b. and then because a times b right there, so it's ab, and then we have a plus b. Okay, so then we need to factor this out. So in our numerator right here, we can do the difference of squares. So that turns into b plus a and b minus a. Okay, our denominator stays the way that it is, a squared, b squared. Okay, this over here is going to stay. Okay, now what happens right here is these are actually opposites of each other. So since actually technically they're not opposites of each other because they're both positives. Yeah, they're flipped around, but they're still both positives. That only works whenever it's subtraction. Okay, so that's still positive A, that's still positive B, so those are actually going to cancel each other out there. So we still have our b minus a. The ab over a squared b squared, that just means that that's going to cancel to where you're left with an ab in the denominator. So we are left with b minus a over ab, because a over a squared is a to the negative first, b over b squared is b to the negative first. And that's our final answer. Okay, on this one, that's going to turn into, that 1 right there is going to turn into n over n. And this one's going to be also an n over n. So we have common denominators. So that turns into m minus n over n. And then times the reciprocal, so n over m plus n. Okay, so our n's are going to cancel each other out there. So we're left with m minus n over m plus n as our final answer. Okay, on 15, to get those the same, this side we need to multiply times a v. So that turns into v plus 1 over 4v. And then to get this the same, this side we need to multiply times a 4, and this side times a v. Okay, so our numerator, because we're doing the reciprocal of this, is going to be 4v, and this is over 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 times v is v. Okay, so our 4v's are going to cancel each other out, so that leaves us with a v plus 1 over a 4 plus v as our answer. Okay, and then this one here, well, first we need to get the greatest common factor out of this, so that turns into 5 times a plus 3. So that means that this side over here, we just need to multiply times a 5 to get common denominators. So we have 5a squared plus a squared, and it is over 5 times a plus 3. Okay, which that then turns to a 6a squared if we want to go ahead and simplify that. So we have 6a squared over 5 times a plus 3. In the denominator down here, this side we need to multiply times a 5, and this side times an a plus 3. Okay, if we're multiplying times the reciprocal, our numerator is going to be 5 times a plus 3, because that's what our denominator down here would be. And then our denominator is 5 times a is 5a, and 1 times a is a, and 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, so then that turns into, that's a 6a right there, so 6a plus 3. Okay, so canceling each other out. So this cancels. So that leaves us, I'm just going to condense this down, that leaves us with a 6a squared over 6a plus 3. So what can we take out of all of this? Well, first, if we want to, let's go ahead and take out a greatest common factor of a 3 out of that. So that turns into 6a squared over 3 times 2a plus 1. Okay, 6 over 3 cancels to a 2. So it's 2a squared over 2a plus 1 is going to be our final answer. Okay, all right, so this is complex fractions. So first thing, create into a single fraction in the numerator denominator, set up as a division problem, then multiply by the reciprocal, and then simplify as needed. Okay, complex fractions.